Welcome to Fireside Giants. Once at the fireside, always at the fireside. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we're here to talk about the offensive playmakers for the New York Giants and how insane they're going to be this upcoming season. Hopefully, I'm laying out the optimistic vibes to them. I'm setting them positive energy because I want them to be an above-average offense. And we're going to talk about why they have the potential to be an above-average offense, all the playmakers that they added this season, what they bring to this team schematically, but also just in terms of helping Daniel Jones take that next step forward in his progression. That's very, very important. It's integral, really, that Jones shows that progression we need him to show. And I just wrote a really long article about, why we're going to see more improvement from him. And I discovered a couple interesting things I think you guys will appreciate. So before we dive into all these cool different factors the Giants have on offense upcoming season, Anthony, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm struggling to live right now. Sore throat, think I might have strep, getting the COVID shot today, have to move out of my dorm. It's going to be real tough, but still here, still ready to talk some Giants football on Fireside Giants. Of course, as always, never miss a day, daily grind, here for it, and let Daniel Jones eat. That's the number one thing I got to say. Let Daniel Jones eat. He's got all the utensils at his disposal to dive into this deep steak and meat and potatoes. Let Daniel Jones eat. 2021, that's the year for him. It's going to be his breakout year or it's going to be his bottom out year. And the Giants now gave him all of the playmakers necessary to make it a breakout year. And I can't wait to see it all come onto the field in September or August if you're excited for preseason, which I guess I am too, because I just can't wait to watch some Giants football, man. And I think this is going to be a fun year now that the Giants have really loaded up on offensive weapons after we complained endlessly in the past year about not having enough offensive weapons. So it's going to be really, really exciting as a Giants fan this year. And like I said, can't wait to watch Daniel Jones get to work and start eating.
Yeah, Daniel Jones showed up with a fork last year, and they gave him Spam. If you're old enough to know what Spam is, it's disgusting, and they gave him Spam instead of the meat and potatoes. I didn't give him that nice T-bone steak, that American strip. No, thank you, the Giants said. They gave him Spam. And unfortunate for him, because the guy ended up, injured because he was running for his life. He's trying to pick up yards. He's trying to do everything on his own because he doesn't have a wide receiver one. He doesn't have Saquon Barkley. His offensive line's Swiss cheddar cheese. And now we're sitting here saying we should take a step forward. The Daniel Jones should take a step forward. And I was looking at his stats from last year, and as we know, he saw his touchdowns reduced by 13 from 24 to 11. His interceptions, he threw 2 fewer interceptions. He had 7 fewer fumbles. So we showed development in the category of turnovers. But I was looking at his game logs for 2020, and I discovered something rather interesting. Right before he went down, he suffered that hamstring injury against Cincinnati. He missed the next game against Seattle. He played against Arizona, and that was inactive against Cleveland. And I'll tell you what, his statistics leading up to that injury were very good. And while he didn't have many touchdowns because they were running the ball in from the 1-yard line with Wayne Gallman, the statistics from him for Daniel Jones in the passing game were actually pretty impressive. And I'll tell you why. Against Washington in Week 9, he had a 67.65% completion rate, which was way above his average last season at 63%. In week 10 against Philadelphia, he earned a 75% completion rate. That was the highest it's been in his entire career. 244 yards. He didn't throw any touchdowns or any interceptions. He also ran the ball for 64 yards. The guy is capable of throwing the ball effectively. Now, the Giants had one of the worst red zone offenses in the NFL last year. When they got to the red zone, they rarely ever managed to convert. Against Cleveland, we saw them go for it twice on 4th down and fail both times. And that was kind of the problem, is that once they got to the red zone, they didn't have that big body. All they had to do was really shut down Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, and you could shut down their whole offense. Sterling Shepard was their wide receiver 1 last year, and CB1s were just shutting him down. It was unfortunate, but now we have Kenny Golladay. And what does that mean for this Giants offense? What does Kenny Golladay bring to this Giants offense as a 6'4", 50-50 ball specialist? Jason Garrett loves to use those man coverage 50-50 balls. Kenny Golladay is one of the best in the NFL at catching those. He can high point it, got the size, got the speed, and he really offers Daniel Jones that security blanket. He's going to be a lot better on those 50-50 balls than Sterling Shepard or John Ross or Dante Pettis or any of those guys. Even Evan Ingram, who dropped that pass against Philadelphia, which will forever live in the back of my mind. But Kenny, and this is Anthony's guy going back months. Anthony said, I need Kenny Golladay. We need Kenny Golladay. And finally they went out and they snagged him. And he brings an element to this offense that we've been missing since Plaxico Burress. And if you remember what Plaxico Burress used to do to people, and he used to, leap over them, make incredible catches, Kenny Golladay can replicate that. The Giants are getting back to those roots, and I'm really excited for what he brings to this offense. And he's able to go into the slot. He's able to play outside. He's your primary X receiver. You can get very versatile and diverse with the alignments of all these different receivers, including Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard. And you know what? I'll say this. Last year, wide receiver 1, Sterling Shepard. The wide receiver 2, Darius Slayton. This year, wide receiver 1, Kenny Golladay. Wide receiver 2, Sterling Shepard. I'd even throw in Kadarius Toney as like a maybe he'll end up being that wide receiver 2 guy, because I think he has that potential early on. And so you have guys, 2 wide receiver 2s in Toney and Sterling Shepard. I think that's kind of where they'll bounce back and forth. And you still have Darius Slayton. You've got John Ross. You have Evan Ingram still. You've got Kyle Rudolph. But Anthony, when you look at Kenny Golladay, how exciting does he make you for this offense? What does it mean for Daniel Jones? Because of his production last year, taking that big fall off after the injury, having a security blanket like Kenny Golladay is immense. It's incredible. And what does that mean to you in terms of what the Giants offense can do with him?
Yeah, Kenny Golladay is going to be huge for the Giants because, we struggled to get separation last year from the receivers, and Kenny Golladay might not fix that, but Kenny Golladay does add in secure, reliable hands, right? The Giants struggled with a lot of drops last year, and I know we always want to pinpoint Evan Ingram, but it wasn't just Evan Ingram, okay? Darius Slayton had some drops too, and there was a couple other guys that here and there were just having concentration drops. There was something going on. Kenny Golladay is as reliable as it gets, and so is Kyle Rudolph. I want to throw that in there. The Giants fixed that. They got guys with good hands, and Kenny Golladay is one of them. Kenny Golladay gives Daniel Jones that intimidating alpha dog outside X receiver, right? That big body, 6'4" frame that you can just trust to go up there and get it. You can throw it up into traffic, and you can trust that Kenny Golladay will come away with it more times than the defensive back will. And I think that's hugely important for Daniel Jones, especially when Daniel Jones is a guy who threw a lot of deep passes last year, a lot of throws 20-plus yards. That's where he really did most of his damage. Pretty much all of his touchdowns came from over there. He was one of the highest-graded quarterbacks throwing 20-plus yards. And if you look at Kenny Golladay, a lot of his receptions are 20-plus yards. He goes vertical, runs nice post routes, corner routes, and just go routes, fade routes, right? And he just goes up there and he gets it. Maybe some deep ins here and there, deep outs, but really he just goes up there and he gets it. You watch the game against the Atlanta Falcons that Detroit had last year, and Kenny Golladay had 6 receptions. All of them were contested, but I think he caught 6 of 6 targets or something. He just went up there and caught everything. It was insane. And the Giants really needed a guy who can do that. They didn't have anyone on their roster who could do that before. Darius Slayton wasn't going up there over jumping people and out-muscling people and catching passes. Okay, there's no way you're relying on Darius Slayton to be that guy. Evan Ingram, they tried to get him to do that. They really never succeeded with that. Sterling Shepard's not going up there and doing that. Golden Tate was never going up there and doing that. He's too small. So now the Giants finally have that guy. They've got that big body, that outside threat, that guy who can make these contested catches, those 50-50 jump balls. And those aren't always the most reliable ways to win football games, but they don't just have that 50-50 jump ball guy now. Okay, now they also have Kadarius Toney that get wide open, get him in space, and he will break 10 ankles at once and then take off to the house. They added that little fire and ice element, right? They got their big body outside guy. Now they got their shifty after the catch inside guy. I mean, that's a perfect combo right there. Plus, you got the 2 dependable guys to put on the other outside with Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. The Giants really revamped this receiving core, and I think it's going to be huge for Daniel Jones to have this revamped receiving core, especially because all of these players are going to be able to fit into very defined roles, right? Because I remember talking about this on the live stream. The Giants were last in the NFL in yards after catch per reception in 2020. They had 3 yards after catch per reception. That is abysmal. Ranked dead last in the league. Then they went out there and they drafted the best yards after catch guy possible in this year's draft. And that's going to be huge for them. It feels a very niche need, but a necessary need. So now they got that guy with Kadarius Toney, and they got that outside receiving threat that can go vertical and make these big 50-50 balls with Kenny Golladay. They totally revamped the receiving core, and I think this actually has the potential to be one of the best receiving units in the NFL if the passing concepts from Jason Garrett can all come together and lead them to do that.
Yeah, you know what? So, speaking of passing concepts, I really feel as though Russ Callaway, this guy from LSU, what Ed Orgeron called their secret weapon, I really think he's going to make a significant impact, guys. He's a name that might slide under the table. You might not really hear about him much, but it's those behind-the-scenes guys that really make a difference. And I'll tell you what, every single coach that Joe Judge handpicked last year, and that's not including Jason Garrett and Mark Colombo, who weren't his guys, nailed it. He absolutely killed his coaching selections. Patrick Graham, Burton Burns, Coach Chaos. All of these guys were phenomenal last year for what they had to work with. We're talking about, a defense that was projected to be one of the worst in the NFL, ended up being a top 10 unit. The offense led by Mark Colombo and Jason Garrett primarily, not really good. They didn't really do well. So what did Joe Judge do? He went out, he got himself Rob Sale, who was his guy, that's his coach, that he picked specifically, and he went out and got Russ Callaway from LSU, who, again, had one of the highest scoring offense at Samford in the SEC a couple years ago when he was their head coach. Russ Callaway, do not underestimate this guy. I actually think he could be the future offensive coordinator of this team. That's how high I am on Russ Callaway. He comes from an air raid or air Coryell type system. So you're going to see this offense develop tremendously. They have a full offseason, in-person training, preseason. They have a full offseason to finally get this offense where it needs to be, establish that next layer of base concepts. And I think Russ Callaway, coming from a system that specializes in downfield approach, if you look at LSU, what he did for that offense and what he did with Joey Burrow and all these different playmakers, they're getting drafted left and right day one. And he played a huge part in helping devise a more influential downfield and attack-based approach for LSU's offense. And the Giants, now with Kadarius Toney, who Anthony mentioned is an instant playmaker day one, arguably the best guy after a catch in this draft class. And when you have guys like Urban Meyer, who's a former college guy, saying, damn, I was praying he fell to 25, it says something. It says something. A lot of guys are saying Kadarius Toney might have been the steal of the first round at 20. And I'll tell you what, some people say he's a reach. Some people say the Giants reached for Kadarius Toney. But anything 15 and after, you're kind of just going for best talent, best player available. You're not always going to hit on those guys. They're not the elite talents anymore, but I think Kadarius Toney is as close you can get to like an instant impact player. Like every great offense in the NFL right now has one of those change of pace guys. One of those guys that makes people miss in the open field, can do this, can do that. The Giants have 4 of them. They have Sterling Shepard who can do that. They have Kenny Golladay who can do that. They have Saquon Barkley that can do that. They have Kadarius Toney who can do that. I would even throw in Evan Ingram when he can catch the freaking ball. You know what I mean? Like, they have a bunch of players who can blow an offense up in any given moment, can take a ball to the house at any given moment. I say Sterling Shepard probably not categorized in taking to the house. He's not the fastest guy, but he has very good hands. One of the best route runners on this team, maybe in the NFC East, maybe in the league if you want to take it that far. So this offense, Russ Callaway, I'm very confident in him. Anthony knows this. They elevated Freddie Kitchens to a senior advisor on offense, so he's going to have more of a say. He loves to use those running backs, those dual threat running backs, which I think they're going to use Devontae Booker and Saquon as a tandem at times. I like that approach. They had Deion Lewis last year. They didn't really use him well. They didn't really get him into space. They didn't really get him the ball in the passing game efficiently. We watched a couple games where he just did not get the ball, and Daniel Jones missed her. He wasn't even a read, and he was wide open. They were just kind of ignoring him because they knew the Giants were going to go to him. So I think now moving forward, we're going to see a very creative offense. Russ Callaway is going to be a big part of that. All these different playmakers are going to be a big part of that. But, Anthony, how do you see this offense developing in terms of pre-snap motion? Do you think we're going to see a totally different offense that is included with different pre-snap motions, different timings, different alignments? They're changing formations on any given play, running a more spread offense with, just Saquon Barkley in the backfield and 4 or 5 wide receivers at a time? Or do you think they're going to run more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, and kind of keep it power based and just, bigger up front? How do you see this offense going? Do you think it'll be a match of both? I think it might be a good even split.
Yeah, I think this offense is going to get more vertical. I've been saying for a while, keep in mind that Freddie Kitchens is now the senior offensive assistant. I think that's a huge role. I think that was a huge promotion for him. And I think that gives him one step closer to becoming an offensive coordinator again one day, for Freddie Kitchens at least. Because I think that, he was very vertical with his passing concepts in Cleveland. And especially last year when he had to fill in for Jason Garrett against the Cleveland Browns, he did a really good job having the offense get more vertical, and he did implement more vertical passing concepts with the Giants last year. So now that he's a senior offensive assistant, I have to assume he has more say in the playbook and more say in the passing concepts that get implemented every single week and the way that they use their player personnel. As you mentioned, he loved using that duo running back, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. He loved having that duo, that fire and ice, kind of like what the Giants have in their receiving core. We could see a lot more duo running backs with the Giants offense this year because Freddie Kitchens is now in that senior offensive assistant role. I don't think that pre-snap motion is going to be much more of an emphasis because if you do some research on Freddie Kitchens' offense back in 2019, it still lacked pre-snap motion, and that was one of the criticisms that people had of it. But one thing that it did have was a lot of vertical passing concepts and a lot of play action. Now, play action is huge because that was what helped Baker Mayfield find so much success in his first season or two. I know his second season, Baker Mayfield kind of regressed, and we were like, okay, what's happening? And then third season, he bounced back, was really good this past year. But in his second season, once Freddie Kitchens was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, we did see Baker Mayfield regress, but if you look at his rookie season when Freddie Kitchens was just the offensive coordinator over there and was just helping Baker Mayfield develop, there was a lot of play action, a lot of bootlegs, a lot of things that just opened up the field and masked the inefficiencies of Cleveland's offensive line. You know, when you bootleg, you kind of move them out of space, or you get them into space, the quarterback that is, and then the offensive line is kind of just not even a factor because you just have a guy standing in an open area of the field, and he has to find the passing guy, the receiving guy to throw to, or he's going to get hit, and usually it gives him enough time and space over there to make the throw. So I think we're going to see a lot more bootlegs with that and a lot more play action concepts, and Daniel Jones was pretty good off of play action concepts last year, so I think that's going to benefit him a lot as well. And again, just more vertical route concepts from the Browns, or the Browns offense, yes, being translated over to the Giants now. I think that's going to be huge for Daniel Jones because, like I said, all of his big-time throws from PFF, all of his touchdown passes last year pretty much, except for like 3 of them, they came downfield. They were all 20-plus yard throws. He was phenomenal throwing the ball 20-plus yards downfield. One of the best in the NFL from PFF's grading, from Next Gen Stats' grading. Everyone had him as one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. So those vertical concepts, I think, are going to be huge for him, not only because they're going to play to his strength and allow him to attack the 20-plus yard throwing range, but they're also going to open things up underneath. When you got a guy like Kenny Golladay going vertical, you got a guy like Darius Slayton going vertical, well, that's when you have little drag routes for Evan Engram wide open underneath. And then you have little slant routes and whip routes for Kadarius Toney wide open underneath. And then you open everything up underneath by just pushing everything down vertical and forcing the defense to drop back and respect that. And now you have the underneath part of the field open. Just make easy, wide open throws to these shifty guys in space and have them run with the ball, make people miss, and fill up the stat sheet with yards after catch. So I think this is going to simplify things for Daniel Jones, and I think that Freddie Kitchens' influence is going to be felt with play action, vertical route concepts, and a lot of bootlegs.
I agree with you. I think they're going to get a lot more creative. They're going to really put forth another layer to this offense because we saw really just base concepts last year, like a lot of base route running, and it just wasn't as creative as we needed it to be. When they did try to get creative with some end arounds and stuff, the Giants did well with them. Sterling Shepard had a couple touchdowns on end arounds last year, or jet sweeps. So the one time they tried to give it to Evan, they're going to be fumbled against the Rams. They stopped doing that pretty quickly. But when it comes to this offense, you know, a lot of it relies on 2 things. One is Daniel Jones, and the other one is the offensive line. We spoke about the offensive line extensively yesterday and kind of broke down why we think it will either fall apart or to be a little bit optimistic with them, because I think last year they faced a lot of problems. And some people will say, you know, don't make excuses for them, and I get it, but you know, we have to think realistically here because they didn't have a preseason. They're rookies. A lot of them were rookies, or a lot of them were first year at new positions. You know, Nate Solder opted out. They had a lot of problems, and they tried their best. They fought through a lot of it. And I think for the most part, a lot of people aren't expecting them to be great this year. A lot of people aren't expecting the Giants to be good this year. I was just reading a mock draft where they have them with the 8th overall pick, and that's not the one from Chicago. That's their pick. And that's a little crazy to me because I'm thinking, you know, their defense got better. We lost Dalvin, but we gained Adoree Jackson. We gained Aaron Robinson. We gained Ellerson Smith, a couple of really talented guys. I think our offense is a top 10, if not top 5, our defense rather. And, you know, when we're talking about the offense, we ranked 31st in the NFL. There's no way we're that bad still. There's no way we still land at 31st in the NFL. I think that we're going to take a step forward. I think we might land in the 20 to 15 to 20 range if all goes well and injuries don't take a big part in this. But Daniel Jones needs to see that development in several categories. One of them is the fumbles. Of course, we need to see better pocket awareness. Now, Anthony and I also spoke about this yesterday. If those guards and interior offensive linemen aren't able to hold up, Daniel Jones in this offense isn't going to be able to run a vertical-based scheme. You know, he's not going to have time in the pocket. They're going to have to run short routes. It's going to take away a lot of those vertical routes, and teams will be able to play more cover 1, cover 0, and rush the passer. They need to hold it down in the interior of that offensive line. I feel good about Nick Gates. I'm optimistic with Will Hernandez based on what I've heard. He lost a little bit of weight, a little bit more agile, and that chemistry with Andrew Thomas should be good. But Shane Lemieux and Zach Fulton at right guard, that's a question mark to me. I don't know where that's going to go. So there are a lot of different factors in play here. But Anthony, let's go over the tight ends really quickly, because I do want to talk about Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph and how that will play a factor. Now, when it comes to the tight ends, we know Evan Ingram struggles, to catch the football, which is basically his only job. 6 interceptions from Daniel Jones. He threw 10 last year. 6 of them are directly correlated to Evan Ingram drops. All of those interceptions that were thrown to Evan Ingram were from 0 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage and directly in the middle of the field. All of the interceptions, I'll say that again, 0 to 10 yards, directly in the middle of the field, that's where all the interceptions occurred for Evan Ingram. That is no longer where he's going to operate. That is now Kyle Rudolph's zone to dominate. Kyle Rudolph hasn't dropped a pass in 2 years. Kyle Rudolph has good hands. He has a bigger frame. He is 6'7". He's a big red zone body too. They're going to use Evan Ingram in other ways. They're going to push him outside to the seams. They're going to use those spray fades on the outside. They're going to use crossing and drag routes. We're going to see a lot different, alignments, a lot of different route concepts from Evan Ingram, because they realized when we throw the ball to him on those speed balls to the middle of the field, those fast balls from Daniel Jones to the middle of the field, he cannot hang on to them. So now you go get a tight end who can hang on to them. You don't have those turnover problems. The interceptions go down for Daniel Jones. It helps his mental confidence, because we saw it last year when he wasn't throwing interceptions, when he was throwing adequately before that injury. He was making some really great progress. We were all very excited about it. Then the hamstring injury happened. Joe Judge said he shouldn't have even come back from that. 90% of players would have been on IR for the rest of the year. That's a pretty big statement to me, Anthony. How important do you think it is to have guys who aren't going to drop the ball, like Kyle Rudolph, like Kenny Golladay, like Tony, who only had 3 drops in 150 career 150 snaps or 150 targets, had 3 drops. What does it mean to Daniel Jones in terms of his mental processing, his confidence in his playmakers, and his motivation, each and every game? Does that mean a lot to him, do you think? Do you think having that consistency is super important?
I don't know if it necessarily means anything mentally to Daniel Jones. He was reading the field fine for the most part last year, and he was making the throws and hitting the open receivers, and the ball was hitting their hands and then hitting the floor, right? That would happen. I think this is really interesting. You did mention it, but I'm now looking at Evan Ingram and his passing direction or receiving direction. 0 interceptions for everything except short center. 6 interceptions. Now that's kind of nuts. That's literally one portion of the field that he was operating in that just kept creating turnovers. So now I think the Giants should look at the analytics. Dave Gettleman admitted that he does now look at analytics this past week, which was really cool. The Giants should look at these analytics and say, okay, Evan Ingram, maybe you shouldn't be in the short center anymore. Maybe we should move you around. Let's look at Kyle Rudolph, put him in the short center. I think we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel from the Giants this year. I don't think it was a mistake that they went out there and signed Kyle Rudolph alongside Evan Ingram. I think that they want to have a lot of 2 tight end sets out there for 2 reasons. One, they get a lot of explosion and separation out of one tight end in Evan Ingram, right? He's kind of a matchup nightmare. And yeah, we give him a lot of crap for dropping a lot of passes, but we also give the receivers last year a lot of crap for not separating. And Evan Ingram separated. Like, he was open for the majority of the time. He just would drop so many passes, right? So that was obviously a problem. But you have him, and you can have him be your separating tight end and getting open, and then you also have Kyle Rudolph, who's now just your guy to sit down in the middle of the field and be a reliable, dependent, catching traffic guy, right? He just catches the ball, and that's it. That's all he has to do. He doesn't have to separate, doesn't have to get open, just sits down in a zone, catches a pass, and falls forward for 3 yards. That's all he has to do. And I think that's going to simplify the offense for Daniel Jones. You're not forcing people to do things that they're not good at. Evan Ingram is probably no longer going to be forced to sit down in the middle of the field and try and catch a ball in traffic when clearly that's just not his strength. He's better going up against man coverage and trying to get open or separating. He runs extremely good routes for a tight end. Like, Evan Ingram is a good player, a really good tight end. He just keeps getting in his own way, whether it's his mental makeup or his concentration, whatever is happening with the drops, or if he just has bad hands and poor catching form, which I think has something to do with it. That's his problem. It has nothing to do with him separating, getting open, and being a receiver. He improved as a blocker this past year. He's a good tight end. He just can't get out of his own way. Now the Giants have 2 good tight ends. They have Evan Ingram still, but they also have someone to take him out of getting in his own way, right? They have Kyle Rudolph, so now he doesn't have to get in his own way. Kyle Rudolph can do the things that Evan Engram wasn't comfortable doing, and I think that is huge for the Giants, and that will simplify things for Daniel Jones, as he now has a dependency, that reliable receiving threat underneath that he didn't have before, and he has a reliable receiving threat down deep that he didn't have before in Kenny Golladay. So yeah, I think that it helps Daniel Jones knowing that he's got these reliable playmakers and he's got the confidence in these playmakers now. He's got confidence in Kyle Rudolph. He's going to catch the ball. He's got confidence in Kenny Golladay. He's going to go up there and make 50-50 balls. And he's still got confidence in Evan Engram to get open, Sterling Shepard to get open, Darius Slayton to be a good receiving threat deep, right? So I think they gave him all the pieces now. And, of course, Kadarius Toney, they got the confidence that he's going to get open underneath and make plays with his legs, right? So I think they gave him all the pieces. I think Daniel Jones has a lot to work with now. He's got all that he really needs. But I just think, it's going to come down to how do the offensive coordinator and his coaching staff, how does this coaching staff put these players in position to succeed, right? Because the Giants clearly have the talent now. Of course, Daniel Jones, the jury's still out on him. Will he take that step this year? Will he step up in a major way? Will he read the field and not get stuck on his first read like he did quite often last year, okay? Like, he read the field pretty well, but quite often he got stuck on his first read. It's going to come down to, can this offense be more expansive while also being simple, right? Let's be more expansive so that Daniel Jones isn't stuck to just throwing to his first read every play. Let's have there be more, route concepts that actually get him past his first read. Let's have some more, two-man route concepts instead of just one man sits down on a stick route in the middle of the field. Let's have some more creative passing concepts to open up and expand the offense while also having the player personnel to keep it simple enough to where Daniel Jones knows he has open receivers and dependable receivers. So while making it more complex with the personnel, that's what should simplify it. But I think in year 3, second year in a scheme as well, it's time to see that scheme become more complex and see if Daniel Jones can handle the full reins of a complex NFL offensive scheme. Because if he can't, that's going to say a lot, and that's going to tell us to move on. But if he can do that, if he can handle a new opened up playbook with all these route concepts and a better running game and a lot of talent around him, if he can handle all that, then he's our guy. And we'll find that out by the end of this next year.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just like visualizing what this offense is going to look like. And let's say we're in 12 personnel. You have Evan Engram and Kyle Rudolph on the line of scrimmage. Not only does that bait the defense into thinking that you're going to be running the football, which takes guys out of the secondary, but if you're running play action or you're just running, straight off the snap, a passing play, you have to kind of allocate defenders towards a variety of players, right? Let's say Kyle Rudolph is just running hooks. He's just sitting down in the middle of the field where the Giants love to throw that football, like right to the middle of the field, 0 to 10 yards. They love to throw it right there. Evan just couldn't catch it last year. Now they have a guy that can do that. So now you automatically have a linebacker who has to cover that zone. You have a guy who has to cover that zone. Otherwise, Kyle Rudolph's just going to sit there and collect catches all day. First down, first down, first down. Then you have Evan Engram, who's going to really be running right up the seam on a streak route, or he's going to spray fade to the outside. Now you have to have cornerback or a safety covering that zone. You have to have a guy covering that zone. Now you have Saquon Barkley. He could be running out for a pass. He could be running the football. You have to have a linebacker on Saquon Barkley, always having attention on Saquon Barkley, and a safety also having his eyes on Saquon once he gets to the second level. Because once Saquon gets to that second level, he's gone. You need a guy who has an eye on him at all times to cut those angles back. So you're already drawing attention from all these pieces, and that's not even factoring in Kenny Golladay, or John Ross, or Kadarius Toney, or Sterling Shepard, who demand attention. Sterling Shepard is going to feast against CB2, CB3s. Anthony, you know this. He's fantastic CB2, or wide receiver 2. He's going to kill them. He just doesn't do well against CB1s. He needs that CB2, CB3 matchup. Kadarius Toney against slot corners. He's going to feast against slot corners. Kenny Golladay, going to feast. Even if it's a CB1, he has the height. You can throw the football up and he will catch the football. That's where the Giants got him. So you already have safeties being allocated to the seams for Evan Engram. You have both linebackers really caught up by Kyle Rudolph sitting down the middle of the field, and Saquon Barkley. You have Kadarius Toney, who, once you get him into space and those linebackers are already out of position, you can get the ball to Kadarius Toney on maybe a bubble screen on the outside because all this attention is being allocated everywhere. It's going to confuse defenses, kind of what I'm getting at. The Giants are going to try and confuse these defenses. That's what the Giants defense did last year to opposing offenses. They used this 3-4 disguise coverage scheme. They had Logan Ryan backtracking in the backfield. They had Xavier McKinney moving around, Jabril Peppers blitzing off the edge. They were trying to confuse all of these offensive coordinators to say, like, Jabril Peppers is going to be blitzing. No. He's actually dropping back into coverage. Logan Ryan's blitzing from a safety position on a delayed blitz. These are all different things that they did to disguise offensive coordinators, and you saw it against Seattle. They killed them. The Giants are going to try and replicate that same thing on offense. Last year, they just didn't have the personnel. Now they do. They have the strong points. They have the players who command that attention. So that's what excites me the most about this offense, guys. We have all these different big-time playmakers who demand attention from coordinators and defenders, and it opens up the field. Because if you're running 3 consecutive plays to Saquon Barkley, suddenly they forget about Kadarius Toney. They forget about this guy or that guy. That's kind of the idea. So I'm really excited about this offense, Anthony. Just kind of reviewing all these playmakers that we have and why we should be so excited for them. That's the best part about this. But guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button below on YouTube. Make sure to turn on notifications for Apple and Spotify once you are at the fireside. You gotta never leave the fireside, my friends. Welcome to this community if you're new. If you tuned in over the live stream, much love as always. We're here to produce content every single day, elite level stuff. That's what we roll. That's how we roll. And that's what I'm excited to do every single day for you. So hopefully you have an amazing week, my friends. Get ready for Giants football in a couple weeks. We're going to be here every day talking New York Giants. So I'm really excited about that. And we'll catch you guys on the next video.